Shaun, thanks for joining me. I love doing these. So, for those who don't know you, give a quick background of like what you've done the last 20, 30 years or, whatever for your vocation, and then talk a little bit about what you do for Promptly.
My name is Shaun Priest. So I lead the go-to-market team at Promptly Patient Experience. And then I'm a 30-year HIT guy. So I started out on the implementation side at Meditech and Cerner installing EHRs. And then I switched over to the business development side. And then healthcare information technology has been just a wonderful field. All the growth and change we've seen over the last 30 years with Y2K and meaningful use, and now AI. It's
Hmm.
just been a wonderful journey. And Kate, I'm now on the back nine. So
That's
I'm
cool.
not on 17, but I'm also not on 10. I'm somewhere between 10 and 17. So I give
That's
it back
awesome.
now. I
How
give it
long?
back now.
Yeah, that's awesome. How long have you been at Promptly?
So I've been probably coming up on 2 years.
Okay, that's awesome. So give a quick overview of who Promptly is and what you do, and then I'll ask a handful of questions around, the technology stacks at practices.
Yeah, so Promptly's the end-to-end patient experience solution. So we don't want to be your practice management or your EHR, but we want to be your one patient experience partner, and that's all the way from lead management and CRM to online scheduling to appointment reminders to check-in to insurance eligibility to payment to post-visit follow-up to recalls to reactivations. Having that one full suite, that one full partner integrated with your practice management system.
It's really helpful for this first question, which is what is the role of technology at a practice for the patient experience? Like you kind of just mapped out all the touch points, but as you work with practices and you see practices taking their technology stack serious and investing in things like Promptly, what are some of the impacts you see on the actual patient experience for the patient specifically?
Yeah. So, what's interesting, my first answer is not technology. So,
Hmm,
my first answer is what's the culture of the practice around the patient experience? So, we
hmm,
see the patient experience all the way from the staff that answers the phone or the AI that answers the phone to where parking is, to where the lobby is, to how easy to find. So, if you're really committed to the patient experience, it's that full end to end piece, which is very wide. And if you're
hmm,
committed to the culture of having the best patient experience, then technology has to be part of that. So I do
hmm.
think technology is step two. That's what Promptly does. But I think first is then how do you have a culture of it? And then how do you go map out those touch points? And how are you touching where the patient is? And one of the interesting things in healthcare, I talked about my 30 years, you also deal with multi generational in healthcare. So, how can you help meet the patient where they are? Right. So,
Hmm.
do you meet the patient on their phone? I mean, on their mobile device? Do you meet them on their landline, email, all of these different pieces? So how can you set up these touch points to meet where your patient where they are in their journey?
That's really good. What do you find are the most common challenges at a practice level, kind of related to their tech stack, specific to the patient experience?
Yeah. So what's happened in our industry? So again, I've been doing this a long time, and I started doing websites in 1999. So in
That's awesome.
1999, places didn't have websites. So again, I'm going to date myself of how old I am. But what has happened in the market today? So you choose one company to do a website, then you choose another company to do reminders. You choose another company to do check-in, another company to pay. So what has happened? If you look past the last 15 years, organizations have made great individual decisions, right? They had a business problem, they chose a partner, they solved it, right? Now, how can I look at that full patient experience? And essentially, for our model, how do I have one partner? So
Hmm.
the tech stack has grown. And then I just did a hiking meeting this morning. So if anybody's familiar, I do hiking meetings. And we actually spent a lot of time with the person I hiked with this morning about how you do need to be integration. So the technology matters. Who's their EHR? Who's their practice management system? How are we going to connect to those pieces? So technology is the nuts and bolts of it are still very important today. It'll be interesting to see how much AI changes the market.
Hmm.
Is AI going to make it easier to integrate with these third party systems? Right? How can it help with us? Like one thing we do is online scheduling. And the challenge in online scheduling, patients are demanding online scheduling. It's actually with the providers. The providers don't want to get the wrong patient at the wrong time on their schedule,
Hmm.
right? So then for us, We use AI on the back end to ask a set of questions to make sure you line those pieces up. So the market's moving very fast. But now, can we also use AI to make it easier to get information out of these back end systems and then put the right information back into the systems? If not, we do API, HL7s, whatever the practice management systems. I feel like I got in the weeds on that one, Kate.
No, it's good. I mean, as a general rule of thumb, do you think practices are adopting the fast pace of changing technology and consolidation and evaluating, or do you think it's a real friction point and it's something that, again, as a general rule of thumb, most practices really struggle with?
So one thing, and I'll do the macro comment on healthcare. Healthcare is always a lagger, right? So
Hmm,
if you take if you go to medical school, right, rule number one is do no harm, right?
hmm.
So the easiest way to do no harm is to keep doing what I've been
Do
doing for
nothing.
30 years, right? So there
Yeah.
is a natural friction there. And then one of the pieces we talk about when we speak to practices across the country is like, what business problem are you trying to solve? Right?
Mm,
Do you have a no-show problem, right? So how can we actually communicate with the patient? Just remind them when the appointment is, right? Is
mm,
it open appointment slots? So I got to do online scheduling. Is it insurance? I mean, one of the things in our industry, people that use the service expect somebody else to pay for it, right? So,
mm,
no margin, no mission. So usually what happens is a practice finds some specific business problem they're trying to solve that's now, right, do no harm. That's now doing harm, that patients aren't showing up for appointments, that I'm actually not getting paid for the services I'm providing. And then typically they look at it and we say, okay, well, now you've got these other legacy systems. How can we actually look at it as a whole? Is where the market usually moves. But to your point, the market, it moved super quick during COVID. So just get on my diatribe for a second. So I've been doing this a long time. There's been external movers. So when we had Y2K, people upgraded because of Y2K for all the old people listening. Then there was meaningful use where you had to upgrade your technology. So in 99, there was a big move. In 2008, there was a big move. And then there was a huge one with COVID. So one of the
mm,
pieces practice found with COVID is they actually couldn't check in a patient remotely. They
mm,
just couldn't do it. So,
mm,
and that was a big move. And so I think we're moving back to a more traditional spot. So one piece we do see in the market. So if in 2001 you made a bunch of quick decisions because you had to make COVID decisions, and maybe you did pick 3 or 4 vendors, now 5 years later, you're now looking at it again. But typically
mm,
healthcare runs about a 7-year decision cycle, but it's a steady
mm.
business, back to being a great business. Again, I love doing it. But I would say it's hard for organizations to do change.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I guess my last question for you is, practices listening to this, they're thinking about their tech stack. It's a little overwhelming to think about getting rid of 5 vendors, consolidating down to one, getting rid of 10 tools, consolidating to one stack. So where would you encourage a practice to start? Like what's the first thing you think they should evaluate and consider and kind of move toward in terms of technology transformation in their practice?
So I'd go back to my previous response around what business problem are we solving? Because we do, if you
Mm,
look what promptly sells, I actually think we sell change,
mm.
right? And change is hard for everybody, right? Change is hard for me. So we're switching from PowerPoint to Google Slides, and I'm struggling, right? Because I've been
Yeah.
using PowerPoint forever. But
Yeah.
so I would answer not like, where's your problem? Because if you have a big enough problem, organizations will change, right? So we'll just take something simple like no shows, right? So if you have
Mm,
a no show problem, start there because you're
mm,
going to be motivated to do it. And then when you solve that problem, well, now I have to do more messaging. So now I can get more proactive with messaging. Now I can say, hey, you know what? Let's actually do recalls, right? You had this one procedure and you need to do these follow-ups. Okay, now we're
mm,
doing that. Oh, now you know what? Let's go back to reactivate patients that haven't been in a year. Oh, now you want to go
mm,
reactivate them? Go do scheduling, right? And I could do the same thing. Let's say you've got an insurance denials problem. Let's actually start with insurance, right? How do I
mm.
capture the insurance before the patient comes? So I actually don't think that answer varies by the practice because if they have that challenge, they'll stick with it. If they say, hey, I want to replace everything because it's a nice to have, those are harder projects.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Really good stuff. Shaun, thanks so much for joining me. For those who are not connected with you online, what's the best place to follow you, connect with you, and engage with you online?
So I'm not on the Facebook, I'm not on the Instagram, I'm not on the TikTok, but I am on the LinkedIn. So
Love it.
you reach out on LinkedIn. I love doing this. And Kate, you guys do a great job. So I think I've
Thank
been
you.
previously, I know you support Guido's podcast, does a great job. So you're also a Promptly partner. So we appreciate all this stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Shaun. I appreciate you joining me.